voice. Recording in progress.
Okay.
Lift every voice and sing till again ever. Ring with the harmonies of the let our rejoicing rise high as the listening flows. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song to the faith that the Lord has taught us. Sing a song of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. God of our healing, God of our silence, thou who hast brought us far, thou who hast by thy might love and truth. Stephen Chambangs. Keep us forever in love and we places of God Stephen Chambangs.
And what is our native land?
Africa.
Africa.
What is our native land?
Africa.
Africa is the homeland of mankind,
Africa.
and it is our ancestral homeland. Welcome to the Africa Diaspora Directorate.
All right. So in this series of calls through the 28th, we are leading up to the creation of civil society in the permanent form on the people of African descent. And that permanent form is a crucial, we're in that incubation stage, okay? The baby has been conceived. The baby has been born 5 days ago, Monday. We're on that 5th day. And the African Diaspora Directorate was conceived in 2019 to be the onboarding ramp for 300 million of us in the global African diaspora, with the 1.3 billion people on the continent and member states of the African Union. We thought we were going to have to operate within the construct of between the African Union, which has not created an expanded charter for the African diaspora, but through executive action has given us a place in the African Union. But the United Nations has acted. The United States has acted. President Biden, his words on day one, he lived up to the words that said, we will address our history as a country and have a racial reconciliation. He said it on day one, Executive Order 13985.
So Herschel, you're not facing the camera. Is that by intent?
I am facing the camera on Herschel Daniels.
Oh, okay. Well, you're not the one we're streaming.
I've got
You're not streaming.
two things.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can adjust you.
All right. So there I go. All right.
Thank you.
So my name is Herschel Daniels. I'm chairman of Friends of the African Union, who started operations through Ambassador Ali. Now, Ambassador Ali was the first ambassador from the African Union. He who in 2011, December 16, 2011, called all the people of African descent to a meeting with her to talk about the agenda for next year in South Africa for the Global African Diaspora meeting. She created the impetus for us to create Friends of the African Union, so that we in the United States can hook up with our brothers and sisters in Africa. That Africa had not forgotten us. They'd just been busy getting out of colonial rule. They had been busy getting themselves together because the people who had ruled them for over 1,000 years. Because you got to remember, Africa, as from the days of the 700 AD on, has been rolled by invasion. It has given up hundreds of millions of its people in wars on the continent. It has exported over 54 million Africans as slaves. 14 million to the transatlantic slave trade, 20 million to the Arab lands. It has been rolled by everyone but itself during that time. And so in 63, when the Organization of African Union came about, that was even a fight. There was the two agendas. There was that agenda that said we need to organize, we need to be a United States of Africa, we need to come together, we need to shuck off these land borders that were put into effect by the colonials in the United States in 1885. And I said the United States. That's one of the things that in the intervening years I found out people don't realize is that the United States is a treaty signature to the Treaty of Berlin. Now, we weren't supposed to be, but by the end of World War I, that was part of United States law. And thereby we had an interest in that treaty and its results in slavery and the care of our brothers and sisters, all the facets of that treaty. We had the ability to use that treaty. And so when Friends of the African Union was established, we knew all this. We were people who have been part of the, we had over 200 years of experience in diplomacy and living in Africa and in Pan-Africanism.
Herschel, you left something out. It was actually the United States Congress in 1883 that validated King Leopold as the owner of the Congo that he took into the Berlin Conference to begin the scramble for Africa. So the United States Congress actually validated his ownership of Congo, which precipitated what we now know as the scramble for Africa.
Yes, I was just talking about that, which was an actual treaty that came out of the meeting in Germany that was called by the newly united German state. But yes, that's true. The United States played a role with the Europeans in Africa, because you have to understand the role of the Europeans were for over 800 years. They were ruled by in the Iberian Peninsula because of the invasion from the Iberian Peninsula from Northern Africa, okay, which was under the rule of the invasion of Arabs into the African kingdoms that took over the Roman kingdoms, the Roman kingdom, and they took over Iberia, or what we call Spain and Portugal, for nearly 800 years. Then when the Europeans came back to Africa, okay, that we had already Arab slavery going on for Africans into the Arab lands for over 800 years. Then when they came back, that the whole institute in 1493 under the Roman Catholic Church, they ignored the Ethiopian or the original Christian church on the continent, because you have to remember that the Pope.
Excuse me, in 1452,
Yes.
in 1452, it was Port Nicholas with the Dom Diversas as a response to the Crusades that gave the Crusaders the right to imprison people for life that led to what we now are dealing with.
Well, we'll argue that question in terms of the exploratory of the kingdoms was actually in 1493 under the Roman Catholic issue of a bull, versus what I understand what you're talking about was not. Okay,
it was, in fact, the papal bull. It was a papal bull of 1452, but we won't digress. Go right ahead. I apologize.
No. I'm learning something. Okay. Do me a
Yes,
favor.
it was a
put
papal
put in
bull.
the-
It was I'll put the link in there. It's a papal bull of. I'll put.
yeah,
Thank you. Go ahead. I'll put the link in the chat.
no. So it was my understanding that was limited to the Crusades. Okay, it was not okay a universal bull, but okay, I may be wrong. Okay, nothing says that I'm not, and I like to learn where I'm wrong so I can correct it. But my understanding and that we're using was the 1493 because that was global in nature. And so that's what we were using in the Indigenous Peoples Alliance. And so if I'm wrong, please,
It's
let's have that.
the papal bull. The papal bull you're referring to is based upon the 15th. I'll put the link in the chat. But the papal bull I'm referring to by Pope Nicholas is the one that preceded the one you're talking about. It provided
Yes.
the foundation for it. But I'll put the link in the chat.
Okay, so I need to take a look at that because I don't want to turn the wrong stuff into the United Nations, okay, on Sunday, within the context of 1493 versus 1452, okay? So I need to read it and we'll have that discussion tomorrow. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, and so the experience that we have relative to the creation of the Friends of the African Union led us to, in 2019, the creation of the African Diaspora Directorate that would not be Friends of the African Union, but would be a neutral basis for all organizations in which to come together, and that they would be able to come together through that organization, through memorandum of understanding and through operational agreements that they don't look to as a coalition of coalitions. And so I learned how this works through the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, which is a coalition of coalitions of 600 of us who now have created over $298 billion worth of bank-based community benefit agreements. It's only that in this year of 2020 that we had made a decision within NCRC as member organizations, the African Diaspora Directorate and Friends of the African Union, that we would specifically create a caucus of Black folk in that organization. And then, of course, COVID hit. And we are just now, after a year and a half, are down that path of doing that. We just signed an agreement with PNC Bank that starts on 1 January 2022 for $88 billion with NCRC and a group of members like us that negotiated this 4-year deal that includes $500 million worth of philanthropic funding. What we're doing today, what we do on Fridays, is we talk about human rights. We talk about the Universal Periodic Review, which is our tool for the creation of every nation that's a member of the United Nations and the observer states of the United Nations. We use that tool that the ex-Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called a most powerful tool for the civil society in the United Nations. And we use that tool as both an identifier of human rights problems in member states and solutions to those problems. So we're more on the solution side rather than the problem identification side. On the problem identification side, we're more like your gap identifier. Okay, we're the organization that says, along with reparations in the United States, okay, that we as I'm personally a member of NCOBRA. We as an organization have paid our membership fee as NCOBRA and et cetera. We're waiting for them to administratively acknowledge us as a member coalition. But we come to the table saying, okay, we know that there should be reparations paid for what has happened. We know that we have a president on day one who says racial reconciliation. We know we have an administration that on last Monday recognized that Black folk should have a permanent forum in the United Nations where we can all get together. We have acknowledgement of our issues on racism in America, but we agree that the statement of the ambassador, they're not unique to America. I mean, you know, you got to look at South Africa just now had over 350 people just were killed in domestic violence. They had over 70 people killed for xenophobia, 350 in their equivalent of our January 6th, 350 killed. The president of South Africa has just shook up his whole government, okay, and realigned his whole government. We are living in times of change. And this administration has said that they recognize that there has to be change. There has to be racial reconciliation, but there has to be remembrance of what has gone before. And in terms of HR 40, as we were talking to some people about this today, I said, you know, we have 191 co-sponsors currently under HR 40. Now, understand what HR 40 is, not only just a study, but it's also of why reparations should happen, but it's also a study of the reparations formats that will be enacted. Now, what we have said is the Black folks plan for restorative justice, okay, is a $6 trillion 75-year plan of action, okay? And in that plan of action, we're basing it on the over $298 billion worth of current bank-based, Federal Reserve bank-based community benefit agreements. This ain't the greater corporate world of the United States. These are just the Federal Reserve banks, okay? And so when we talk about the greater world of corporate America, we're saying for the next 75 years to create a financial instrument that will $80 billion a year commitment will create a $6 trillion fund. And we give you a use of proceeds of how we spend that use of those funds. And among how we spend those funds, we talk about public safety. And so that's also a prime issue that we talk about on every Friday, okay? So human rights, public safety, that's a Friday focus, talking about poverty, talking about human rights. And let's find out who's on the call, and let's get any questions that we have so far. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, we did do 3 things differently, and that will be for every day. One, we opened up with Lift Every Voice and Sing. And that is a carryover from the African Diaspora Directorate, which we opened every call with Lift Every Voice and Sing. So we're carrying it over to these calls to the 28th, and we'll have a version of that for you tomorrow. along with the words so that you understand what this is all about. Second, we usually open up with some words of prayer, okay? And I'm going to make sure that, I shut up in just a second. And if we'll have Elder Cox, if she will, prophet, okay, of the word, will give us some words of prayer. And then we're going to ask, okay, the chairman of the African Diaspora Directorate to say some words of opening about this, and then we will move on to the Gambia from the brother who is our diplomat in residence from the Gambia, and it's very late for him, so we would give words from him. So Elder Cox, would you give us some words of opening?
My apologies. I was looking for something. Is it okay if I read something, or you want me to do the prayer?
It's balls in your court.
Yeah, balls in your court.
Okay, just something that struck me, and I thought I would share it. As I was thinking about it, it reminds me of some of what we're doing. And so, take it for what it's worth, but I thought about Africa as a whole. And a scripture came to my mind. It's Isaiah 60, and it goes like this. So think of the thy and the these and that as Africa. Arise, shine, for thy light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Lord shall rise upon thee, Africa. And his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes about, and see, all they gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy sons shall come from far, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. Then thou shalt see and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. The forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. The multitude of camels shall cover thee. The dromedaries of Midian and Ephah shall all they from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and incense. They shall show forth the praises of the Lord. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered together unto thee. The rams of Nebaioth shall minister unto thee. They shall come up with acceptance on mine altar. I will glorify the house of my glory. Who are these that fly as a cloud and are as the doves to their windows? Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first. Bring the sons from far, their silver, their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. And the sons of strangers shall build up the walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor I have mercy on thee. Therefore the gates shall be open continuously, they shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, their nations shall be utterly wasted. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary. I will make the place of my feet glorious. The sons also them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and all they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet, and they shall call thee the city of God, the Zion of the Holy One. Whereas thou hast been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through thee, I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. Thou shalt suck the milk of the Gentiles, and thou shalt suck the breast of kings, and thou shalt know that I, the God, I am the Redeemer, the Mighty One. For brass, I will bring gold, and for iron, I will bring silver, for wood, brass, and for stones, iron. I will also make thy officers peace, and thine exactors righteousness. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders. But thou shalt call thy walls salvation and thy gates praise. The sun shall no more be like the sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither the brightness shall the moon give light unto thee, but God shall be unto thee an everlasting light. The sun shall no more go down, neither shall the moon withdraw itself, for the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of the morning shall be ended. And I'll stop there. It's kind of long, but anyway, just it's an affirmation and declaration that came to my mind about Africa. We began in the beginning, there was Africa, and all people came from there, and so it shall be as we go forth. Amen.
Thank you. Such is our opening of this day, the 5th day in a new era of the unification of 1.6 billion human beings in the permanent form on the people of African descent. Chairman Kofi Ajapong, I would ask you, would you take the floor?
Thank you very much, Managing Director. Ladies and gentlemen, sons and daughters of Africa. The scripture I read just now tells you and me what the Europeans have done to the African world. The Bible was written by us, by our ancestors during the time of the ancient African spiritual civilization. Very few people know anything about it because what we know is what the white man has written. Very few Africans have written anything for us. The Bible is called the book of knowledge and wisdom. A lot of things are in the Bible as opposed to Quran. But when the hymnist says, true to our God and true to our native land, and we are worshiping a God which is not an African God, then where are we? The African has a different religion, or the whole Black Africa that has been completely destroyed, almost gone, being replaced by the European who inherited the Roman Empire. And as the managing director said, and the Arabs went to North Africa and got the concept of religion. And the Romans, to me, were some of the wisest men ever lived. Their writings, if you go and read the Roman stories, very interesting. You may even forget about the life of Christ. They write so well. So now where are we? We always say true to our God and true to our native land. And we are not in our native land, and we are not truthful to our God. So where are we going? It's a serious thing, I'm telling you. And on the normal circumstances, I won't say it because sometimes Hesha objects. Because when I speak on this subject, is the key to my understanding of life. The Europeans have stolen everything from us, including our way of looking at God. If you go to East, South, West, and North of Africa, we have one religion. Anybody who opposes that is a foreign. So Africa now is full, is 100% almost foreigners in religion. Christianity and Islam are the dominant parts, and nobody speaks it. Some of my friends in Nigeria who took the floor to speak about religion, they evade Islam and Christianity because Boko Haram is in Nigeria. if you are not careful, these are black men who will come and chop your head away. This is a real thing. So most of the African scholars have no knowledge or will not even dare to research into finding out what is the African religion. But anyway, we are on. We are not giving up. Gradually, we are crawling. Gradually now, we are uniting now. Isn't it amazing that the children of Africa who were scattered all over the world are now being pulled together by the Europeans? And we are going there gradually. And they better be careful because we are not them and they are not us. And I want you to take what I've said very seriously, because if you are a fish in the water and they take you out of the water and put you in the sun, you're dead. Can we say that is what African is? At least those are born to see in Ghana, they're completely like beasts in a sense. Why you say you are a scholar and you steal and you embezzle and you take the money for the poor and you buy cars, you put them in European banks. Kwame Nkrumah of all men has $650 million in Swiss bank. And these are the things that became to me. They give you the money. I was a chief accountant of the state transport. They came to bring me money and I rejected because my conscience had been developed to this level. And I want each one of you hearing me develop a mind that it's not necessary to own everything, to own all the companies, to create all the companies for yourself. Create it for us. Thank you very much.
So as the chairman said, we have disagreements, okay, that we talk about this because I point out that Christianity comes out of Alexandria, Egypt. It was conquered by the Roman Empire and made the religion of Europe, but it comes out of Africa because Egypt is of Africa. And the original concept of the Christ as a written form comes out of Mayat. And that discussion we have ongoing. And so I understand that the chairman, okay, of the African Diaspora Director and Sons and Daughters of Africa, based on his life experience, has seen where we have come to today, that the indigenous religions of Africa in the majority of countries are now running a distant third between Islam and Christianity on the continent. And with Islam ascendancy from 670 AD on has changed the continent. One of the things that another change is that's going on the continent that people are not realizing is the agreement between the Roman Catholic Church and Sunni Islam that happened. And that meeting that happened between the Pope and the leading cleric in Sunni Islam is rolling both. But we here in America have no clue that that's going on. And majority of Africa have no clue that that's going on. One of the things that we're going to be able to do in this permanent forum is to expand on that discussion, because our landing point right now in this conference call is first the Gambia. And next year, the Gambia is going to host the OIC. And this year, in those discussions that we can have here in America, between the Christian church, between Sunni Islam, indigenous African religions, the whole idea of the world religious bringing it together, we can facilitate that for people of African descent because we're facilitating a conversation about the upcoming global climate summit, which threatens us all, everybody, all 7 billion of us.
Which is why you wanted to allow our guests from Africa to speak now before it gets too late.
And that was my lead up to him. Okay, you didn't see the chat, but yes, that was my lead up to him because he's gracious enough to be up early in the morning to be on these calls. And Your Excellency, I now give over to you the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Brother. Greetings to all in the room. Peace be with all of you. And we thank the pastor for the wonderful prayers. We really need to stop the killing and try to nurture peace in the mind of everybody. Talking about peace and harmony of religions, I would start with the Gambia first. The reason why, or one of the most important reasons why the African Union chose the Gambia as the headquarters for the African Union Human Rights Commission headquarters. Anyone who doesn't understand how peoples of different religious beliefs and creeds and cultures live harmoniously as brothers and sisters, try it, visit Gambia at least for 2 weeks. You will never identify anybody by the looks or by their interactions as a Christian, as a Muslim, or as an African traditional believer. We are all one big family. And we go to each other's functions and we respect each other's beliefs. So what is being perpetrated in Nigeria by the Boko Haram, the same thing is happening in Biafra, killing innocent Nigerian Muslims, which is unfortunate. When you come to the Gambia, you would see Christians respect their church and all other people respect the churches and fight to protect them. The same thing applies to the mosques. The same thing applies to the shrines of the traditional Africans. We even have a traditional national shrine where you have crocodiles and people around the world come there as tourists to pay respect to that shrine. And even Gambian Muslim and Christians visit the shrine. So coming back to the origin of religion, I respect all your views, but I would just like to remind you a little bit. The Quran came not to contradict, but to confirm what the Bible said. So it did not come to give a big encyclopedia of explanations. It summarizes and confirms what the Bible said. Judaism, we can say, started in Africa because the house of Israel. Who is the house of Israel? It is Jacob with his 12 children. Unfortunately, due to their personal tricky enmity, trying to drown one of their brothers in a well, gave birth to the Jewish religion in Egypt, because it was that rejected brother that became, and showing you how generous and benevolent Africans are, because the then pharaohs are of our kind, you and me. They look like you and me. They don't segregate people on their color. They look at your nobility and your righteousness. They identified the righteousness of Joseph, gave him a high position in the government of Egypt. It is what brought to the rise of the Israelites. And Greeks were coming to Egypt to study. From around the world, they were coming to Egypt to seek knowledge. And no doubt the Israelis are not an exception. Even the Ark of the Covenant, which they so sacredly place in their sacred chambers in Israel, I don't know where it is now, if it is ever existed. The gold they built it with was from Africa, in Egypt. And when they started mischief, it had to take God to come and rescue them from the punishment meted on them for their mischief on the hospitality granted them. And I once met some Arabs in India. I told them that Islam was originated by Africans, and they were not very happy about it. I told them who is the mother of Ismail, the wife of Prophet Ibrahim, the lady he married from Egypt. They said is Hagar, the African woman. And I told them, let me tell you one thing. If you are looking low upon Africans, especially Black people, I'm telling you, I am looking low upon you, because from the instance Islam was founded, everyone who goes to pilgrimage, it is mandatory. You have to run 7 times from the different, in between the two mounts of Arafah to make the same trekking that Hagar did when she was looking for water for her child, Ismail, who was abandoned with her in that valley of Becca. So the foundation of Islam is Black. So they were so mad, they said, we never even realized this, that everybody going to pilgrimage is running that 7 rounds in memory of a Black woman. I said, yes, because you are ignorant. So Africa was the beginning of everything, and so shall we maintain it. And let us forget about calling any African Sunni, Christian, blah, blah. We are Africans. Let us keep our religions in our closets, in our masjids, in our churches, in our shrines. But when we come together, when you build a Mercedes-Benz, if you are in the car, you would not realize which part was made by a Christian, which part was made by a Jew, which part was made by a Zoroastrian. But that same capital that was built by different religions, the owner of the capital takes that capital and uses it in favor on his chosen religion and fight the rest. So what's the point? Let us merge together with our talents, with our powers, with our resources. I don't believe Europeans have stolen anything from us, because just like Brother Daniel said, we already have more than, he said, some 30 trillion. I'm saying more than 300 trillion. And even the dollar is not even worth enough to value the value of resources that are not yet touched in the continent. We need to get a new standard of valuation, but not to peg it against any currency of the enslavers. So in saying this, I invite you to come to the Gambia and see where there is no color, no religions difference, and we are harmoniously moving as one people, and we engage each and every person of African origin as ours. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you. And so let's be clear in terms of the Gambia, and so people understand, we have agreed in principle here, the organizations represented here, that next week that we will issue a letter of intent to form a cooperative operation in the Gambia that would, one, create a global communications, computing, connectivity, e-commerce, cryptology network that would also serve as the basis for creating a healthcare infrastructure for all 1.6 billion people of African descent, with our initial country on the continent, the Gambia. Because the Gambia, number two, as a public-private partnership. Number one is a civil society partnership with Black businesses. Number two is to create a public-private partnership with, number one, with the government of the Gambia. And number three is on that basis to create an export trade infrastructure in the United States focused on the Gambia that makes usage of the Universal Periodic Review and the infrastructure that is in place from the United States that can support Project 1 and 2. In implementation of this, with the understanding on Project 4 that we would specifically use the whole idea of the return, because this is the year that we're using the extended return. COVID interrupted the year of return as declared by Friends of the African Union, the African Diaspora Directorate, and partners in 2019. And so that this return will be centered around creating a planned unit development. And in that planned unit development, with the idea that 10,000 Americans with a focus on people of African descent, with a focus on veterans, with a focus on seniors who have a pension, who have a steady income of funds that would allow them to then buy a lifestyle in a planned unit development in a gated community that would support an employment ratio of 10 to 1. In other words, if there's 10,000 households that come from America, that would employ 100,000 Gambians on an ongoing basis. In that employment would include the creation of an educational infrastructure that is tied to an American school of medical science that is certified domestically in the United States, that is willing to take that extension domestically to the Gambia to train medical professionals in the Gambia who would be qualified for certification under American educational standardization. And that would also, not only for doctors, nurses, and other health professionals, but would include initially those in health IT, information technology. And so that information technologist then would become a global service center from the Gambia for a health IT infrastructure for that 1.6 billion people of African descent through the Indigenous Peoples Alliance and a co-op that is being proposed out of that on this Sunday. Questions?
This is Anyan. Well, my questions are always the same because for those even in this country who are looking more to healthier options than the traditional healthcare offers, I was just successful in getting a doctor to take my sister off 5 medicines that were causing her problems. Is there something, and I know this in order probably to, because the pharmaceutical and the lobby is so strong, I don't want the group to run into problems like, but integrative medicine, I mean, there are things that that we can do or people have done that don't have the side effects and problems. Is there a way to tap into, like, just like you have the certification, and I'm trained, of course, as a nurse, but I would like to be, is there a way to get that other piece in there with the traditional integrative, and the National Institute of Health calls it integrative CAM, complementary and alternative. They have names for it,
So in Africa, sister, they're way ahead of you. Okay, they've already approved creating a traditional health infrastructure along with.
Okay, you just broke up. I didn't hear the last part.
I'm sorry about that. So in Africa, they have Can you hear me?
I can now. It was just a little piece that broke off. You said they have already the way ahead because they have something already going on.
Yeah, they have already approved such an infrastructure in the African Union's medical plan.
Oh, good. All right.
Right. And it's up to us to bring that into the permanent form as explanation, but that's part of our direct connection with the African continent. Okay, so that's our direct with the African Union. So we're operating on both the United Nations basis. All right, so that's all 1.6 billion of us worldwide, and so you'll take a lead in making that happen in the medical portion of that, because that's what you wanted to do. All right, but separately, we in the United States, our CDC birthed the African CDC, but the African medical plan from 2016 to 2030 and its implementation has birthed the whole concept of traditional 6,000-year-old medicine. Learning needs not to be lost. All right, and so they are addressing it. And what COVID has given us is the opportunity to embed it. Okay, with unfortunately this variant D plus. Okay, and as you as a health professional, you know that every day it's getting worse and worse in terms of the studies that are coming out in booster shot, the whole question, et cetera, and the whole mask question. So here in America, we're looking at least 200,000, maybe another 400,000 deaths. Okay, by this time next year.
Have you read Harriet Washington's work, The Medical Apartheid? Because it's on book and audio as well. If you look at that, because she talks about beware of things that come out now just based on our history. Because I don't personally believe every report they say, because it wouldn't be the first time that they were not totally honest. But the medical apartheid, Harriet Washington. So, but anyway, I'm just saying thank you for that, because I do like the fact that the traditional won't start trouble here. But
I will say that in particular, no, that's interesting. All right, sorry about that. It's I forgot to power my phone.
Mr. Managing Director.
So apartheid that has went on through 65, and then the racism from 65 on here in America, we have a unique opportunity to address it. But I will say in terms of messenger RNA, that I studied the issue. Messenger RNA isn't something brand new. It's 2 decades old in terms of work. And so, yes, I looked at it, okay, and I did look at the issue.
No, it's a book called Medical Apartheid, but I guess you've answered my question that regardless of whether it's COVID or swine flu or cancer, whatever, that in the African tradition, we can have the freedom to use other options. Is really my point, I guess.
Yeah, we agree. And like I said, within the whole idea of the permanent form, I'll be sending you the invitation to create it. What we're going to do is create it under the African Diaspora Directorate, because we have that in terms of domestic to bring it together for the diaspora. But now we have the permanent form, which lets us create it globally, the African Union, US, and then domestically in the United States. Okay, COP 26 is our goal. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Managing Director.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I muted Kofi. He has to unmute himself.
About 10 months or a year ago, I mentioned here that I belong to a group in Ghana that only speaks in Twi,
I can't hear you,
local
Kofi. Speak up, please.
languages on traditional medicine. And anyone
Can't hear
who
you.
wants to contact them, I can give you the email, the WhatsApp,
Right.
and you can reach them. This is a very important thing. The greatest problem facing us here is organization. I formed SADA when I was in law school in 1970. It took up to 50 years for me to meet you. And all the time I was very active. The African American has all the knowledge in the world, but it's organized.
Well, we're organized now. I mean, when we met
Thank you.
on Friday about U.S. policy, there were groups on the phone that was representing over 800 different civil society organizations, and moving together from Friday to Monday, from Thursday when the United States worked in the UN about the permanent form, and Monday, the change happened. Okay, so what hasn't come, there hasn't been a plan, a Black folks plan that has for people to rally around. Okay, permanent form for people to rally around. People didn't know how to connect up with the African Union because they were taught incorrectly. What we have the chance to do now is to make that happen. Okay, because there's organizations like I'm Kappa Legacy. Okay, you know, Divine Nine. There's over 2 million in the Divine Nine. Okay, all right. Organization, it's organized. It's organized over 100 years. Okay, now is the NAACP maybe missing in action on some things? That's fine. That's our chance. We've agreed that we work from Kansas to deal with agriculture in the NAACP. I was on the phone today with the banking aspect out of Kansas. Okay, that will come around relative to agriculture. All right, organizational, but they have to have a theme. The problem that we haven't had is that we haven't had an objective that we could all organize around. Think about it, HR 40, organization to get 191 co-sponsors in the House right now. That took organization. Now, what we can't do as the goal line is in reach, where we've now birthed the permanent form. What we have to do is just do an Uber organizational infrastructure. And so that's just now, that's what we're doing. This is the basis for that Uber organizational infrastructure. And Mr. Chairman, let's do some of that organizational. And I would ask Mary, if she comes on and gives us a report on that organizational infrastructure that she's working on. And then I would ask if Michael would give the work that created, think about it. This year, the president created a national holiday on Juneteenth. Okay. And so I'm going to ask Michael to follow Mary, or Mary, if you're ready, you can start.
Thank you, Hasho. Sometimes it's tough when you're talking of organization. True, I can see what Dr. Kofi is trying to drive at. Actually, when I met him, he was one person who was bored, and I said, "Oh, how do we hang around here?" You know, so when he's saying that African Americans are not organized, actually let him, I would wish to also say Africans, blacks in general, we get challenged by organization. So if you are a historical African American, don't take it personal, because I'm used to the way I call him Uncle Kofi. We're just hashtag there, and you are like, wait. So he's just meaning all of us. But what we are trying to also advocate for is that organization in terms of financial. Remember, organizing people is so hard if they don't have means. And this goes hand in hand with even different challenges, even on the issues of good governance on the continent. It is not because that our people don't want all those good millennium goals that are there, but the means challenge them. So at Watch Democracy Grow, we together with this group, which we started on various issues, and then thank God we are now on a compromise. So we are kind of pushing a vehicle called, we compare it to the Marshall Plan, but in the real sense, we call it Africa Infrastructure Development Plan. And if I may take this opportunity to just share maybe 5 minutes of the PowerPoint that we are having in the community. Let me see if it would be easy for me to do. Are we able to see there, please? Okay, so the Marshall Plan we are talking about was the recovery after the World War II, and it was intended to help Europe get back to their knees economically. So we are like, whichever we are trying for, even here, by the way, or even at home, as long as there is no economic injection in the system will still just revolve over us. We are talking of the People's Forum, the permanent forum. If it is not having the means, it is also going to be theoretically, but not practically. So we are trying to show how the Second World War, the challenges that were there after the war, even what is there after COVID. The current economic crisis on the continent itself, it's so appalling with the COVID when we can't even afford our vaccines. We've been actually fighting for the SDRs to be approved so that we borrow more money. The question becomes, how long are we going to be indebted? And that indebtedness usually affects the future of any generation. So for the Marshall Plan, we tend to see various factors that facilitated the idea. First, there was the initial effort from the German banker to reach out to the US for that hand. And there was the US willingness to help German. There was also a political ground which was favorable for both, because they both believed they could gain. So this particular plan we are trying to advocate for also is that it is a plan that is going to end the security concern that we are discussing here. Remember, when young people are just idle, they are not in school, they are not working, then they are vulnerable for any negative forces on the continent. So the money we spend fight terrorism, if we could combine all that to create a package that would help on the continent, maybe those issues we are talking about would be reduced. So this is how it was reimbursed. I'm not just going, it was financed. I'm not going to go more into that, because this is where we are using to compare what can we learn from the Africa Infrastructure Development Plan, what can we learn from the Marshall Plan. That is going to be our action plan. Or is it maybe can we move things around? Should we change, especially that maybe the conditions that were there in 1947 are not the current conditions that we are facing now. And some are similar, because when you're talking of the issue of immigration, we have, because there are no hope sometimes on the continent, the current Western world is full of pretty much Africans coming for the better opportunities. Probably this would offer a hope in that Africa becomes a desirable place, that the young generation would remain there. We are talking of even human capital development. When we see corruption and illicit financial flows, it is because sometimes we have less engagement of our people into those things. So how do we create human capital in that the Africans also are going to engage, in that Dr. Kofi would have loved to start a school and maybe go and teach in Ghana, but comparing the advantage of US vis-a-vis Ghana, that is why he's here. That is why I'm here too, you know, and very many. So how do we make Africa such an attractable continent for the people of the African descent, or even the Africans in general? And the only way we are trying to advocate for that is that if we get the means and the continent becomes stable, who knows, we would get maybe a 21st century growing business pattern, in that we end the notion of always running from IMF with the, you know, loans and all that kind of, because remember, indebtedness on the continent is one thing which has crippled the African economies. So without taking much of your time, that's where we are. These are the areas that we are trying to focus on. We are calling it a 6 model, which is going to focus on education infrastructure, health, energy boost, industrial and manufacturing capacity building, hard infrastructure, roads, railway, and others, good governance and accountability as the best practices to really try to integrate on the continent. Because one thing that made German Marshall Plan succeed was that German government was very responsible. As a matter of fact, when the US was expecting that the money which was revolving from the German Marshall Plan that they had established was supposed to be used to be paid back, it was the German government which had actually put their taxes to pay back, so the other amount of money continues to revolve, lending to the civil society and other industries and manufacturing German companies. And the plan boosted German to a bigger capacity. So we hope that with the good governance and accountability, that would be at least something that would be able to push the plan. So in short, that's where we are. We had last Tuesday, we presented at African Advocacy Network, where we had a lot of religious groups really interested in the program. On Tuesday, we are meeting their accountability working group, so that they can incorporate that notion of saying how responsible are our governments going to be, so that we can be able to help our communities of that. And with that, that is the update that I had. I thank you for the minutes.
Questions. Live mic, presentations there, questions.
This is not so much a question. I just looking at the Marshall Plan and after this 1947, and United States also became the world reserve currency, right? Is that the time or that was before that?
It is during that whole era that we took control of the world currency. We still control 70% of it. The world's $200 trillion in funding, GDP right now. And we've made moves going off of LIBOR to still continue that control. Yes.
So Mary, is this plan, this Marshall Plan, you're having meetings about this with what group? And what group will be signatory if there is such a plan out of your team?
Okay, so the current group that is working on that, we have Hasho, who is part of it also. That would be African Directorate. We have UNESCO Center for Peace. We have Watch Democracy Grow. We have individuals whom we call Friends of Africa. These are academians. These are people who have worked with the USAID before, and they are like, based on our experience on the continent, this is where the loopholes may have been. This is what, because remember, this, we are trying to make this a civil society, concurring with the permanent forum, empowering community, especially on the continent. Remember, we don't have a lot of checks and balances. So this that's the group that is working on the plan.
So Andrew?
Yes.
Okay. One, the conversation I think you're going to have, we'll have offline relative to this, but once we reach an agreement next week, we are also, as part of the Civil Society of the African Union, I'm part of the, when I say I got to stop using that I, we are part through Friends of the African Union, part of the civil society infrastructure in the African Development Bank, the African CDC, and other African Union organizational infrastructure. Once we have this agreement next week, we will be taking it to Africa House. We've already talked to the ambassador, and she is very much interested in calling a meeting to the table like Ambassador Ali did. Okay, so I will talk to you more about that on our international call tomorrow. Okay, before our international call.
Right, Mary, the last question I have is how, because it seems that you do have people that are on the African continent. Now, we've talked about the 12 flagship projects for the continent of Africa. It seems that what you're now talking about could in fact involve the entire African diaspora and the legacy, the diaspora commissions for each of the 55 African countries. Have you taken that into consideration, or does that make any impact on what you're doing?
No, actually, thank you for actually that addition, because the essence is that we want to bring also, remember, diaspora gives a lot of remittances on the continent. So we want to make this one also another way that A, diaspora can be involved on the continent, that B, if they want also to do some development activities on the continent, they have that leverage. And C, we just finished the conceptual paper and we are now getting out to the community. So yes, we are going to consider them. We had actually Africa Development Bank on Thursday, where we're trying to let them know that for the purposes of letting it be a civil society based kind of initiative, we can't roll it over to the African Development Bank. Therefore, we will need a separate entity, just like in Germany, they had to create an agency which was going to deal with the infrastructure rehabilitation.
Yes, I understand. My point, however, is that, for example, I know Nigeria has a commission. There are 5 diaspora members of that commission. One of them happens to be Shola Agula, who's part of our team. But it seems to me that you can gain power in your presentation by targeting your message to those interested groups that
Yeah.
have a vested interest in succeeding.
Yeah, sure. We
Yeah,
are just
so-
going to the community now, to the organizations. Actually, even the African Union will reach there. We just reached out to the Africa Development First, but we are just concentrating on the conceptual paper, so that while we are engaging them, you have what you are going to discuss with them. But definitely we are going to consider those.
Okay, Herschel, I'll be quiet.
So just so you know, people, tomorrow's our International Organizational Day. And so that's when we're going to dive in, deep dive into this. All right. So Mary, thank you very much. Okay, we wanted to get that on the table. Okay, so that people understand about the part that they can play. But if you want to know more in detail, come back tomorrow.
One quick question, please.
Yes.
This is Hanif Khalil, Wichita Council of Elders, Western R 7th Division. Mary mentioned the conceptual paper.
Yes.
How can we get access?
You will have access to the paper, brother. You will have full access to the papers next week in the conceptualization papers. They'll be posted on our joint website.
Thank you.
Well, what the brother didn't ask is how, before it goes to the website, if at all, can there be a review and contributions by those people who have skill sets that may improve what it is that's presented. That's what he didn't ask.
Again, it will be draft conceptualization that they will be able to participate in the working groups of making the papers better.
Actually, we are even inviting people to be part of it, and in case they want to edit the paper, it is already, we have it on the Google Doc.
Can you put the link in the chat so that we can access it, please?
You can do that via your email, and not right now.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I said, Andrew, that we were going to continue this tomorrow. It is right now, the documents, we will probably put those into the chat tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. And if you want more information on that, please come back tomorrow for tomorrow's call at 7 p.m. on our international.
So
will it be the same Zoom link? The same link for the international call?
Yes, the same link every day. But Brother Hanif Khalili, if you'll put your email into the chat, what we try to do is connect with those people whose email we have with updates of the daily recordings. So if you're making it available, I'll do my best to get it out to you.
Yes, sir. I'm doing it as we speak.
Same goes for everyone else.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there's also a link in the chat. We're streaming this on Facebook. So for those of you that want to share this in other postings, if you are able to do that, even after we're done here, it will start over from the beginning, so people can get it from the beginning. That's in the chat as well.
Where on Facebook are you streaming it?
I stream it every day to the Encounter Think Tank. It's a group, the Encounter Think Tank is a group that it's streamed to, and then I post that link to the other pages.
If you want, you can always go to where it says live streaming on Facebook, and you drop down, it says copy streaming link, and copy streaming link, and you can take that copy streaming link and you can drop it into our site at the African Diaspora Directory, AfDiDi 2063 on Facebook.
Yeah, I did that earlier today, this time.
So now this is
I
a
have been
daily.
looking for it in the AfDiDi group, and it hasn't been being streamed there. So I was.
I didn't.
So again, we will take care of that tonight in terms of the 411 of how to do that. We'll come back on and talk about that.
Yes, Hanif, to answer your question, I think you probably access this through a registration link we'll be doing this daily through August the 28th. But my understanding is that once you register for any of them, you can use the same link every day. The link doesn't change.
That's right. That's correct. And
I-
right now in the chat is where it currently lands. Okay. And so you could just take that link and put that link anywhere on Facebook and you will get the live stream. You can put it on your front page. You can put it in any group, put it in any page right there. It's in the chat. Andrew puts this up every time we do this. Okay, Andrew puts this up at the beginning of the event, but there it is.
Yeah, so even if, again, if people don't tune in while we're live streaming, the link will still be active. It'll begin at the beginning. So it's accessible.
And we go and check and see if there's any questions. And if there's any questions, we try and answer them on the next day.
Well, I'm very much inspired and encouraged by the fact that you do this daily. The urgency demands that we do something like this on this type of basis. And I'm hopeful and prayerful that we can achieve the goals that we're talking about right now. I'm very much encouraged by this.
Well, now may be the time for you, sir, if you'd be so kind, because typically we have, I think Herschel calls it a roll call, where we identify who we are. Most of the people here have already gone through that, but Mr. Hanif, we encourage you in the chat to put your, I heard your title, but put your identifying group or organization, if there's a website, if there's a way we can reach you. But I'll turn it back over to the chairperson to handle all those things. I'll be quiet again.
All right, thank you.
Andrew, you're never quiet, but you're informative. Okay, all right. So this is all about unity in the community. We've been there. So Michael.
Yes, sir.
Okay, floor is yours. Tell us about the connections that have happened this year.
Well, first, I'll introduce myself. I'm Michael Harris. I'm out here in California, in Sacramento region. For 20 years, chair of the California Black Agriculture Working Group, a veteran of policy won't work with the USDA, and a veteran. And so right now we're combining that work and the beautiful fruit, as Herschel asked me to talk about, is the amazing success of a national federal holiday that is called Juneteenth. And whether folks like it or not, it was a military operation that enslaved people of African descent. They were sent, Spanish and Portuguese, in this instance, to the Western Hemisphere, were sent to capture people of African descent. And the idea that it was people of African descent that were deciding balance in the Civil War, according to the president and the military leaders, generals that were on the ground, the winners and the losers, said those Africans, those formerly free and enslaved Africans with guns, were the deciding battles to end the US Civil War. Juneteenth was the last major battle, as we call it, as we celebrate the holiday, the last stronghold of Confederate port in Galveston Island, Texas, where many thousand troops took ships and landed at that port, and took a 7-week campaign throughout Texas, sealed the border with Mexico, and were victorious in ending the US Civil War. And then 13th Amendment, that's another conversation. But Juneteenth, June 19th, 1865, is now a national holiday. And so the work that we're doing with the veterans is really a quarterly thing, and merging. Well, let me back up. Most of the folks that were on the battlefield were agriculturalists, whether they were farmers or at the dock, like Crispus Attucks, who was the first to die for America to be away from British. All of this was agricultural. We were a very agrarian society here in America and certainly in Africa. And the idea that we can bring that back together, as most of us believe in a faith in our tradition, you know, you dress and keep the garden, and that's that's your vocation. And so we do that quarterly. Juneteenth in the summer, right around the summer solstice. In the fall, right around the autumnal equinox, usually there's a homecoming. And then you go to Kwanzaa, which is the agricultural holiday that was founded here in California, synthesizing many harvest festivals in ancient Africa. And then Black History Month, we start Black History Month with, here in California, we celebrate Rosa Parks Day. And the women that led the civil rights movement, that brought King to Montgomery, the patron saint of the Women's Political Council was Rosa Parks, who was doing the work long before the bus ride that she chose not to get up. So the idea that Black veterans, as well as the agriculture, have been leading this effort is what and how I got involved with this group, and you know, grounding ourselves in the fact that most of us want to have a good food, clean water, a roof over our head, and some clothes on. And the one thing that is consistent in all of those is it's an agricultural construct to eat, have clean water, forestry, and certainly have some clothes on your back. So that I'm looking forward to drilling down and making some concrete plans so we can sustain this effort. You know, the work to make Juneteenth a holiday, I'm not on the national board anymore because I'll just say politics, and we've got this, the holiday is done, but now what do we call it, a Freedom Day or Independence Day, and what does that look like? So here in California, we don't have any I guess you would say, political challenges. We are, by statute, it is Freedom Day, and we can focus, and that's what we doing the next few years, is focusing on the 100 cities here in California that have over 100,000 people to tell the authentic story of how people in California, our unique journey towards freedom here in California. By no means are we there. However, we do have the only active statutory authority to drill down and take a look at how we could have some reparative justice with Assembly Bill 3121, authored by Dr. Shirley Weber, who's now the Secretary of State, who is the custodian of the archives of the election, and her daughter took her seat in the 79th district in San Diego. OBGYN, I believe, is her discipline as a doctor. So we're in really good shape going forward. Now we just have to drill down, how do we sustain this effort? And finally, I'll say this week has been it's been just a rough week in the midst of the UN authorizing, you know, in a good way, the permanent forum for people of African descent. You know, some of the most amazing people I know, 3 of them checked out. One, Dr. Goss, and I say check out from the physical realm. Dr. Goss looked at my eyes and told me what was wrong with me. You know, and I said, how does man know that? And he's making his transition. Well, I don't know if Ronoko has a PhD, but he is the top scholar. But Ronoko Rashid, he's making his transition. I believe it's 120 countries and many, many books. Just a beautiful brother. And finally, our brother, the African Scientific Institute, you know, Brother Cherry, just, you know, there are no words to describe, how Black August started. We're not even a week into it, and we've lost, in our physical presence, these three brothers and many others that we don't know the name of. But these three, it hasn't really sunk in yet, but the work continues. And as Herschel said, Juneteenth, our freedom celebration. If you do your DNA, I guarantee you came from some part of Africa. That's going to be probably 80%, probably. Now, if you got less than that, well, we can look and see in your face that you got less than that. Like my mother, she has about 40% because she's indigenous and French, and the Africans there, but the French and the Indian, because she Choctaw. But the beauty is, she raised some kids that know exactly who they are, both the indigenous side out of right past the Black Oil River in Alabama. And the reason why Rosa Parks Day is here in California is I authored it, honoring them fine butter pecan sisters that don't mind standing up and being courageous and doing things. And that's my mother and all of those others that are there. I mean, they could be white if they wanted to, but that big nose and that afro and that whoop ass attitude, because I took a few, more than a few, will make a strong Black man stronger. So I'll stop there and turn it back the floor over and answer any questions that may be.
Open mic, any questions on veterans? Any questions on Juneteenth?
Yes. Michael, first, thank you so much. I want to let you know that in October every year here in Los Angeles, for the last several years, we've had something called the Taste of Soul. And typically it has become the largest free event in the entire county of Los Angeles. At its height, they only claimed to have 300,000 people to come out for a weekend. I would love for us to begin now to engage with Danny Bakewell and the Sentinel, who are the sponsors of it, to focus on the celebration of Juneteenth, because here in Los Angeles, we have a very vibrant Juneteenth group. So I would like to put that on the table for looking forward for the next few months in planning.
Danny, well, let me say this. Some of us on the call have heard Harvey Reid, who is probably going to be the chair again of the statutory committee with USDA. He and Danny went to school together. And at the Million More movement, when we were on the main stage with the Nation of Islam, Danny offered to, sponsor a weekly a conversation around agriculture for Black folks in California. I didn't think it would be a good use of my time because folks just weren't ready. But I've been there many times, many times with Danny in the back rooms with Jesse. We just finally moving forward with Black agriculture. Again, I was in the room when we got the Pickford case and there was problems with it. And I told people, while a lawyer, I told people where they were. And my email is Black Agriculture, Urban Agriculture at Gmail. Those are mine. I'm in the room for Pickford, So I'm very familiar with Danny and the California Media Group. The challenge is, over 300,000 people when COVID's not hit. The challenge is who's producing that food, who's packaging that food. It's not Black folks. We don't have any value. But I hear what you're saying, and I would love to revisit that conversation in a collaborative way with that we've been doing with childhood friends, Harvey Reid and Danny. He's from the same place my people are down in Louisiana, and his son is doing a wonderful job, and there's good continuity, so it'll keep going. It won't be like many other Black newspapers that don't have good continuity.
So let me say, in terms of for the issue that you raised about
5 minutes. I'm almost done.
Manufacturing, that we're going to have that conference call on Sunday, and we're bringing that to the table on the manufacturing of us manufacturing food. We struck a partnership deal with several companies for us to do just that manufacturing. I've got to talk to you and Harvey tomorrow. Yeah,
Well,
okay.
I wasn't through because the other part of that, Michael, was because we have Elder Cox on the line. And as you know, she's a commission member of the 400-year anniversary African American Commission. It seems that we may be able to afford to submit to her a proposal that you or we or they secure a table or booth at the Taste of Soul. I wasn't thinking about so much coming to enjoy ourselves. I was thinking of us having an actual footprint in that event that we could begin to promote and have them promote us. That was my thought, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I got it in my pocket. I thought it was in there. Yeah, no, yeah, we can do that. I mean, like I said, this is not this. Okay, this is not the first rodeo. So I'm in a meeting here. We got the old Anglo National Bank where they took the money from black folks out of gold rush and destroyed our communities. And, the African founding father who had 35,000 acres. And we don't want to talk about that. He's in the port of New Orleans. But no, I'm all for the conversation. The challenge is, because I'm about to broker a deal with the Farm Bureau here, because we're in the #1 ag state. The problem is, at some point, we have to sustain the folks doing the work. And that's not happening. So I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to leave it alone for now because I got a meeting, so I could keep
I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you and Harvey tomorrow. Okay. All right. All right.
This is Commissioner Cox, but I won't repeat. We've kind of had this conversation several times. Commissioner Kenya Cox is on too, so I have a little backup today. So
all I was suggesting was to prepare the paperwork.
So Andrew,
yes,
it's writing to the chairman of the commission.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. Thank you.
All right. So we write to the chairman of the commission our request.
That's correct. And Michael, I believe would be, at any rate, yes, I understand. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay. And so people should know that Michael is also on the Sacramento Historical Society. He also has served, like he said, for decades, getting this movement for getting Juneteenth in, and he was there originally on Pickford. He was actually an observer what happened in 2004 and was around the Pickford case for farming. So let's talk about, one of the things that we're talking about that's coming to the forefront. That is on Fridays, we're talking about human rights. So one of the things is that we put in the chat is the letter that went out, to members that if you did not get this letter, you will get this letter. If I have, you are on our mailing list. If you're not on our mailing list, if you did not get that letter, we will then make sure from this conversation that you get tomorrow's agenda. Tomorrow's agenda is going to talk about the permanent form and the issues surrounding the permanent form. And we're going to talk about for the viewpoint of the Biden-Harris administration's vote and the message that the ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield, when she spoke for the United States on when the United States adopted, she voted that way, like I said, because on Friday, there were 800 groups represented, 800 plus groups represented on Friday's call, last Friday's call. And the United States, and in terms of making their change on Monday, you have to understand that we need to follow up on that and not just wait for the United States to give us a plan, but rather we need to give them a plan. Now, as you heard earlier with Mary, there's a plan being worked on for Africa. There is also a plan being worked on for the United States. And we're now going to, tomorrow, we're going to talk about how those plans come together and the times for workshops that you can participate in the development of the documents. Okay.
Just share the Google Doc because tomorrow I will be on the phone. Thank you.
All right. Well, I didn't want to press you. Okay, so but there it is. Everybody wants to see the work so far for the, and yes, we know about the whole idea of naming it the Marshall Plan. Okay, but that's what our working name is, because everybody, when we say the Marshall Plan, they have some understanding of what it is. Okay. One of the things that I do want to get on the table for you who are commissioners, most people don't know, who are on this, know what we're talking about in the 400 Years Commission. Okay, will you tell people what the 400 Years Commission is and its objectives and its actions?
I'm going to yield to Commissioner Kenya Cox, who is over the education. She's chair, matter of fact, of the Education Committee for the Commission. Are you available, Kenya? She may be multitasking. So I had a whole list that I covered in Nicodemus. It's kind of good to go over it. To hear the details of it, because we have several mandates. One has to do I have a second to pull it up?
Go ahead, you can talk. I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, why don't you pull it? Yeah, because Nicodemus, we read through it, and it was even good for me to go back and read it. So going back a ways, it was really Senator Tim Kaine, who having been a part of some other commissions that commemorated memorable times and with different ethnic groups. He wanted to do something. He really put it in the hands as well of Congressman Bobby Scott and then Mark Warner. And I think they started back around 2016 or so, but the other commissions that were put in place had probably a 3 or 4 year lead. They were put in place and had 3 or 4 years to plan. And so when they finally got ours passed, the 400 Years of African American History Commission, it was in October 2018 and was not funded. The other commissions were funded. So, but since that time, and we were given the task to commemorate in 2019, August 25th, the documented arrival of the first enslaved Africans. And I think Herschel has mentioned that there was some question around whether it was they were enslaved Africans or indentured, but nonetheless, it still had a certain outcome. So that was the task. We did do that, but then in addition to that, we were to also bring forth and highlight accomplishments of people of African descent over the 400 years, because as you know, I'm sure all of you know that history has not been so honest when it comes to what people of African descent have done in this country, whether it's inventions that, they were not allowed to have their trademarks or whatever, what was taken over, and then also the tragedy of slavery itself. So to highlight all of what happened to us basically over these last 400 years. In addition to that, one of the mandates was to also do research, have organizations that were not-for-profit to to bring forth information around research and as it relates to these different areas, and even to include people who were not of African descent, those who played a part, because we know, I think John Moss, someone in Nicodemus as well, talked about how the Native Americans were critical in helping the first African Americans when they arrived in Nicodemus to survive that winter. And so we had several people and the first individuals that the 20 encountered in order to stay afloat and stay alive or whatever. They depended on certain people, Harriet Tubman, of course, with some of the people that she encountered. But in addition to that, we were to give out grants to not-for-profits as well. And I think it was the budget office, Congressional Budget Office. Herschel, you may know the appropriate term for, but I think it was Congressional Budget Office had estimated the cost of our mandates to be about $6 million. And so not being funded, but our first year, we actually managed to do fairly well. And there's more to that. But anyway, so we have given out the second year, the first year we were supposed to go through 2019 and sunset July 1st in 2020, but it was extended. When it was extended in 2020, we were then funded at the amount of $3.3 million. And then it was to sunset in July 1st, 2021, which is, would have been last month, but they extended us again to 2022. So did you pull it up? Because I would like to go through line by line. So what people can find, if you find it in the mandate somewhere.
And then I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the makeup of the commission.
Okay.
We have 15 commissioners, 3 who are appointed by governors. We have 6 members that they're appointed by or represented civil rights organization and historical organizations. 1 member is appointed or represents the National Park Service, and 2 members are appointed by the secretary, and they are members from the Smithsonian Institute. And then 3 members are experts that are appointed by the, they are appointed in interest in support for and expertise appropriate to the commemoration. And they are appointed by the secretary after considering the recommendation of members of Congress. And so there are 15 members of us serving. And as Commissioner A. Cox went through, our term is through the sunsetting in July of 2022. Part of our charge has been, and if you don't have it up yet, it is to develop and carry out programs and activities throughout the United States appropriate with the commemoration. And we're always very clear that we say commemoration. It's not a celebration. It is a commemoration, commemorating, recognizing, remembering, and highlighting the resiliency and the contributions of African Americans since 1619 and forward, to acknowledge the impact that slavery and the laws that enforce racial discrimination had on the United States, and to educate the public about the arrival of Africans in the United States and the contributions of African Americans to the United States, to encourage civic, patriotic, historical, educational, artistic, religious, economic, and other organizations throughout the United States to organize and participate in the anniversary activities to expand understanding and appreciation of the significance of the arrival of Africans in the United States and the contributions of African Americans to the United States, to provide technical assistance to states, localities, and nonprofit organizations to further the commemoration.
And then the grants, Kenya?
Yes, Commissioner.
And the grants, what are the grants for? Because we did give out some grants last year and this year.
I don't have the list before me, But the
No, I
grants
mean, the definition of who, the second page, I think, of one of our documents, I don't have it in front of me, but anyway.
It's on the screen.
Oh, is it? Okay. I need to pull my screen over then, huh?
Yeah, I wanted to know who, the secretary, you said the secretary appointed some of the commissioners, secretary of what department?
Interior.
Thank you.
So the links to their website is in the chat. The links to, they have their own website and then National Park Service website. And so both links are in the chat. And we're privileged to have two of the 15 commissioners on the call currently. And that information on the commissioners is in the chat also.
But to answer your question, the grants are to communities and nonprofit organizations, develop programs, grants to research and scholarly organizations to research, publish, or distribute information about the arrival of Africans in the United States, and technical assistance to states, localities, and nonprofit organizations.
And someone asked the question, how people selected, I guess, who did the Department of Interior? I can say this because when I found out about it in January 2018, I got on my email and did an email blast for 3 months, encouraging people that I thought, so I've had people ask, well, you know, sometimes people will get their, you know, they'll appoint their friends or someone that they know, or they select people. But really, this was one that if someone were interested, now I know they vetted us, they've talked to us about all the vetting that they did, because they took quite a bit of time to go through and research everybody. However, I spent 3 months myself sending out emails and trying to encourage people to apply. And once they found there was no pay, because we are special government employees, uncompensated is our title. And so once they got the last word on there, then I couldn't get anybody that I knew that I thought really would have been great on there to do it. And so it is just an encouragement. If you see something, and of course, this group knows that, you already know this because you're already doing it, that if you see something you're interested in, you know, go for it.
I think the other thing that is very important is to really stress the scope of representation that we have on the commission. We have individuals from the faith community. We have individuals from the arts and culture. We have civic, social, civil rights organization, people from those organizations. We have the secretary of the Smithsonian, Lonnie Bunch, who was the first director of the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. They made sure that we had a variety, vast representation.
Tulsa, we have someone from Tulsa.
Yes, from Tulsa, attorneys, from different walks of life, so that we can make sure that we spoke to the wide uniqueness of African Americans in the United States. Sometimes we only have representatives from one arena, and they really wanted to be sure that we had representation from, I'd say, from the greatest to the greatest. I won't say from the least to the greatest. I'll say from the greatest to the greatest. So a variety of individuals that that I think has really given us an opportunity to have a unique impact during this pivotal time.
There's a question in the chat.
Yeah, I just want everybody to know that they operate under rules of the Federal Advisory Committee Act. And so there's a whole GSA law infrastructure. And like Commissioner Cox said, when people find out that it's not paid and that there are rules of what they can and cannot do that are rather extensive, people say, well, it's not for me. But the work that they did, that they came in a crucial time, and that this was signed January 8th, 2018. It's a law. That means it was passed by the House and the Senate, sent to the president, signed into law. And then it continued for the people to serve on the committee. I know people that they went through their Congress people. I mean, if people who knew about this wanted to serve, then they found out that this was real work. This wasn't just showboating. And let's just say that it has turned out how it is. I didn't actually know that the commission was still in business because it sunsetted July of 2020 under the law. And when COVID hit, I said it was sunsetting. We're going to go continue for doing the Black family reunion on August 25th, 2020 to set the marker for 2021, August 25th. And lo and behold, y'all are still operating. So, you know, we know who to write to. You made clear on the conversations, and I know what the law is. I look to work with you. Yes, John.
Well, actually, before you get to John, just to let you know, we're approaching our 2-hour mark. And for recording purposes, we're about at the, we need to either restart or we need to be able to wind down to make sure we're able to upload this to YouTube.
Right. So yeah, I was going to say that. Okay. And so I'm sure John was going to come on to ask about, were you going to ask any questions on the subject matter?
Yeah, just real quick question. First, thank you for your work. I understand as a nonprofit that doesn't get paid. And that's the same challenge I run into where people are like, oh, that sounds great. What do we do? How do we make money? And then they back away. So my question is similar to the Potawatomi tribe with Kansas. Is there something that collaboratively is a grant that tells the story of the involvement of both of our indigenous people, if you will, that we might qualify for as a support to get the word out for everything? Because by that, I mean, I may know some tribes like the Potawatomi that may want to get involved because they have some funds of their own.
The great news, John, is that your task is to submit the proposal to the commission. It's not their task to tell you what you're qualified for.
So,
And I will say that there was a great,
John,
there was a great program that was presented a number of years ago, maybe 2 years or 3 years ago at the Brown National Park site, which was called The Tale of Two Nations. And it really spoke to the brotherhood between Native and African Americans and the Trail of Tears, how Africans and Natives, how they made that journey together. And so I think, again, part of our job is highlighting that history and telling some of those lesser known stories. So if you do have if you have someone, or if you have some documentation or something, we really do encourage you to submit that to the commission.
If you can get me that information on the story just mentioned, and yes, I do, as I mentioned, and Herschel knows, Haskell Indian University with Dr. Wildcat, as I mentioned regarding the Nicodemus call, are very interested in doing more in support of this, especially with what's going on.
okay. So
and as you know, Nicodemus, they did receive a grant from the 400 Commission. I mentioned the other day, a $10,000 grant.
$10,000 grant, and that it was a great grant. What we're going to do is that we're going to ask, okay, His Excellency Sharif, if he will close down this portion of the meeting so that we will make the time portion for YouTube. And
So I
then we'll
think
start
you're asking,
recording.
so you're asking His Excellency Sharif to make a closing remark to this
Yes.
session?
Yes.
So His Excellency Sharif Balday, can you give us a closing to this portion? And then we'll begin recording again. If you're still with us, Sharif?
I think he just dropped off. He may come back. I mean, I don't know, it just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I just asked him to do that. Okay, so.
No worries. Then let me,
All right.
yeah, let me go ahead and just wind this up here and then just.
No, I'll Bernice, will you wind this up, please? Okay.
Yes, Kenya.
And will you, Commissioner Cox, can you wind us up?
You there, Kenya?
I think she's multitasking.
I was thinking maybe he was talking to you, Prophet Cox.
I
But
think he meant K Cox. We have
Okay.
A Cox and K Cox on the commission.
and no,
He was looking at K Cox.
we
All
didn't. We. I will just close us out in prayer. Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
yes, I am.
Okay. Praise you, Father. Praise you, Father. Praise you, Father. Heavenly Father, we just come before you in the name of Jesus that we serve, Lord, asking you, Lord, for your continued guidance, your wisdom, and your divine strength for, Lord, to continue to accomplish all that you have called us to do. Father, help us to grow in wisdom and strength and in knowledge, Lord, and influence. Help our endeavors, Lord, to manifest in such a way that they bless those that we represent throughout the United States. Father, we will be sure to give you the glory, the honor, and the praise. In the name of Jesus Christ, whom we serve, amen and amen.
Amen, amen.
Amen and
Amen.
amen.
Thank you
All
all
right.
very much.
Ashe.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So do we need to re-log in or?
No,